Hello everyone and welcome to Backlot Banter, the show where we do all the ins and outs and the all the way arounds of, Tucker, say it with me, box
office
ballyhoo. There we go.
Oh, come on. You can do better than that. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Box
office
office
ballyhoo. Yeah, read my lips. Anyway, we're here to talk about the month of April 2023, where we had a big release in Super Mario Brothers movie, and then
and a lot of other things.
Some accoutrement around the Super Mario Brothers movie, all of which have failed to top it at the box office, which makes April an interesting month to talk about. But before we get into all that, I want you to subscribe to Backlot Banter. I want you to like this video. I want you to give that bell a ring-a-ding so you can be alerted to all the new and fantastic videos we upload here at Backlot Banter. And perhaps most importantly, because we want to talk to you, join our Discord. That link's in the description. We talk about box office stuff regularly. We talk about movies. We talk about video games regularly. We are always talking about things regularly, but quite irregularly, if you catch my meaning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, we wanted to add a few things last month, which was, we wanted to have other people predict the top 5 grossers and see if they were any better at doing it than us. As far as I know, we didn't get any, so we can't add that segment to this month's episode.
Sad.
But what I did do is I set up a poll on the Backlot Banter channel to ask what people's most anticipated movie release of April was, with the options being Guardians 3, Fast X, Little Mermaid, Hypnotic (parentheses the new Robert Rodriguez movie), and The Master Gardener (parentheses new Paul Schrader movie).
Yeah,
those last two got 0 votes.
Oh, what?
And the winner is a tie between Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with 36% of the votes and Little Mermaid with another 36% of the votes. Fast X not far behind at only 27.
Okay.
Though we only did get 11 votes. So, it's pretty easy for things to tie when very few people are actually voting on them.
Please let us know what you think the top 5 is going to be domestically for the month of May, which we will get to our predictions at the end of this video. But we'd like to read them out on the episode. So, starting at number 1, I said it already, it's pretty obvious. It was the Super Mario Brothers movie with a $205 million total. Or
5-day opening.
Yeah, 5-day opening. Coming up behind that is a bit of a different type of movie. We got Evil Dead Rise at 24.5.
Yeah.
Then Air, which opened against Mario with 15.9. Another horror film in The Pope's Exorcist at number 4 with 9 million opening. And I guess you could call it another horror film. Horror comedy this time around. Renfield.
Horror action comedy bad. That's the genre.
Yes, bad movie is my favorite genre. It's not. With $8 million. Rounding out the rest of that top 10, we have Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. The Covenant, i.e. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. The re-release of Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Suzume. And Pinion. Sorry. You got to.
Panion Selvin Part 2.
Yeah, Panion Selvin Part 2.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Pinion. Come on, man. But there's not a full written out Panion Selvin Part 2 logo, so I had to find the PS2 logo. But yeah, weird ass month.
Weird ass month. Yeah.
But an interesting month because it's so imbalanced, and some of these are really small but they're interesting, so we've got a lot. We were able to find a lot to cover this month, even though only 2 or 3 of these movies are of any repute. I still want to talk about a lot of these. I'm looking at the Guy Ritchie The Covenant logo right now, and it reminds me of the Solo, a Star Wars movie logo, because you remember it's Star Wars, really small on the top and the bottom, but it says Guy Ritchie's really small on the top. Oh yeah, and Rogue One, yeah. But we got Star Wars Episode 6. Is on our list.
I wanted to do a tally, as we often do. I wanted to do a tally of how many we caught this month, and we're at of course we didn't go to see the re-release of Return of the Jedi. But we have seen that film. So we are at 9. I'm at 9 out of 10.
I'm at
8 out of 10. No, 7 out of 10.
No, 7 out of 10. Because I didn't see The Pope's Exorcist or The Covenant.
Yeah.
I will probably catch those both once they're released online. I think it's a little too late for me to be excited to go see The Pope's Exorcist in theaters.
Tucker,
it's probably still there.
Tucker, you want me to blow your mind right now? And this is, spoiling a little trivia for The Pope's Exorcist slide. It's on VOD already.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
All
Guy
right.
Ritchie's The Covenant is coming this month at some point.
Okay. Great.
I think pretty soon.
Well, then I'll give you the Covenant thoughts next episode.
Oh, all right. Fun.
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay, so let's take a peek at our predictions for what April would shape up to be.
Yeah. One major flaw in our logic here, buddy.
So
the major flaw being we didn't know the power of Russell Crowe as the Pope's exorcist. Neither of us, and frankly, no one that we asked about this had the Pope's exorcist in their top 5. And it made number 4. I mean, the top 3 we thought was going to be more predictable than it was. You and I both had Mario, Evil Dead, which we were correct about. But then we had Renfield at number 3, and that didn't even make top 4. And then Air overperforming, and the two of us putting a little more faith in the releases of both Sisu and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Than warranted, I guess.
Yeah, because if I want to run mine down here, I underestimated the Super Mario Bros. Movie, saying it would make $130 million over its 5-day. It blew past that by $75 million. Then we both got, as you said, we both got Evil Dead Rise. I said 38 for that. It ended up being 24, so slight disappointment. Then I had Renfield at $30 million, Tucker.
Jesus, Tanner.
And that did not end up happening. It made 8. So rough stuff. Real rough stuff for Renfield. Then I had Air making 20. It made about 16, so I'm happy with that one. With that single prediction. And then I had Are You There, Margaret? Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Making 15, and then it did not make up. It made about half of that. So
it'd be a very different movie if it was about God asking about Margaret.
Are you there, Margaret? It's me, God.
Yeah, God's having like a tough day, and he just needs help from his friend Margaret.
Yeah, he just needs help from his middle school girlfriend.
Yes.
No, not that.
Yeah. Well, let's run that one back.
His friend whom is a girl. Yes.
And in middle school.
And in middle school as well.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's start off with something more specific.
Yes.
All right, enough baffing and boffing around. The Super Mario Brothers movie released to almost every kind of acclaim you can get, except for critics.
Yep.
It did amazingly at the box office, as we're obviously going to get into. But I mean, an A cinema score. I believe it has a great community Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, like 98 or so, somewhere in the 90s, 96, something about there. But this is also, we don't get to often talk about a billion.
96.
We don't get to often talk about $1 billion picture here on Backlot Banter.
Only 3 times in our show's history.
That's true
so far.
And this is the first one of the year, so it's a big deal, Tucker. It's a big deal for talking about 2023 at the box office. It has obviously a ton of superlatives. It is the highest grossing video game adaptation of all time, the highest grossing film from Illumination Studios. It held all sorts of box office records for video game movies, for animated movies, stuff like that. I think it is. It is the highest grossing animated movie of all time. It has beat out.
No, that's not true. Frozen 2 and The Lion King, especially. I think that's a top 10 all time highest grossing movie.
Are we counting The Lion King?
Yes. All right. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot over the past month as people have been talking about the top 10, the top highest grossing animated movies. Some people bringing up The Lion King. There's one live action shot in that movie.
Yes, at the very beginning of the film.
Yes, at the very beginning of the film. And the rest of it is animated. It's just a different style of animation. It is a 100% animated film with voice actors voicing animated characters. So, even though it's the live action remake, it's not. It's just another animated movie, but it looks live action. They just did a really goddamn good job making the things look real.
That's true. They did. And I don't know.
It's an animated movie.
I don't know what I was on saying it was going to be the highest grossing animated film of all time, because that's just not true. It's got at least both Frozen films to climb over yet.
And Incredibles 2 as well, I think.
And The Lion King, as you mentioned.
Yeah, but it'll be up there in probably the top 5 by the next time we check in on it next month.
Yes. Now we have some other things to say here, but I think what's really interesting about the Super Mario Bros. Movie is its longevity. As I said at the beginning here, it outgrossed every other film week after week that came out. And really shows the power of putting out a movie that's I really harp on this film being 90 minutes long, which I think is a big benefit towards it. You can bring your kids to it. You get a ton of ticket sales if you got the whole family going. You can bring your kids, sit them down for 90 minutes, and then it's fun for a kids film of that kind. and so they want to go back over and over again, and has proven to be true. It
Yes.
also didn't open in Japan, which is going to be a huge market for a movie about
Well,
Mario.
it did last week.
I mean,
last week
it didn't
on the
open.
28th.
I was about to say it didn't open until April 28th.
Yes, true.
I was putting my claws in the middle there, so I'm very sorry, Tucker.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of the perfect example of what an animated movie can do to boost the box office. The only time we've really seen a successful animated movie in our time doing the show was Minions: The Rise of Gru, which was a perfectly serviceable movie, a perfectly serviceable movie box office wise, but having a movie that's like reaching for superlatives and just blowing past everything else is very exciting. We got that a little bit last year when we were seeing Avatar: The Way of Water continue to take that #1 slot and beat out everything in December and then in January as well. But this is, it's just huge. I mean, this movie's just fucking massive. And I think that, frankly, I can future predict this is going to be the box office story of the year. I mean, I think this might comfortably be the highest grossing movie of this year. That is just a little bit of future projection, but we can have a little bit of a talk about, is there much that could compete with this or beat this out? But having another $1 billion picture is always fun, and for me, having it be a movie that I really enjoyed also adds to a little bit of flavor for that for me. But really the great thing about this is its holds. We were talking about longevity. This is also setting records for holds, like constantly. Like every time we get new numbers in its weekend, it does a little bit better than people were expecting. That means it holds better than it's, as we say at the bottom here, best second and third weekend holds for an animated movie. It also might have the best fourth weekend hold. I think at the time that I wrote these down, it hadn't been out for its fourth weekend. But just still doing numbers. Doing big numbers.
Now, Tucker, what you have written here is that it was initially supposed to release on December 21st, 2022. And I have an interesting thought experiment here. If we had these two, if we had the Super Mario Brothers movie and Avatar jockeying,
like a week back to back.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, Who would have come out on top?
Yeah,
that's a really interesting thought experiment. And I don't know if I have an answer for it. Maybe that's a comment thing. I think it would probably but they're so different. Avatar is over 3 hours long, and this is 90 minutes. Yeah, and like the target demographics are completely different. So it's really...
would the box office space have enough money to make them both be as big as they are? I think the fact that both of those movies got placed in just golden opportunity spots where basically nothing else was making that kind of money for both of their, first months. The Puss in Boots: The Last Wish did hold very well, but it wasn't like making huge chunks of change each weekend. And interestingly enough, as we see down here, this is another that was another Universal animated movie. It swapped places with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So Universal ended up putting Puss in Boots against Avatar, which I think pays off for both Disney with Avatar and Universal with both their animated movies, because Puss in Boots obviously did very well. But the Super Mario Bros. Movie made $1 billion this quickly, this fast, and this hard in terms of how much it's holding, because nothing was fucking competing with it. Nothing was even trying to compete with it. And we're finally getting competition as of recording 2 days ago when Guardians 3 released. And we will probably see a pretty precipitous drop. Probably the movie's biggest, worst hold, dropping down now that it does have a big other box office movie competing with it. But I haven't watched an animated movie do this kind of business before, because other than Minions: The Rise of Gru, animated movies just haven't been being that big.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't tuned into the box office. We both saw Frozen 2, but we weren't tuned into talking about box office ballyhoo back in 2019.
We just started last year, Frank.
That's true.
To caring this much about the box office.
It's very, very interesting stuff from the Super Mario Brothers movie. And as you said, Tucker, we will be checking in on this in next month's episode, as is another segment that Tucker decided to throw in here. Tucker's doing some legwork here, spicing up the show for you, the viewer.
Yes.
And I think you should,
a little more variety.
A little more variety. Sound off in the comments, and make sure to subscribe, because that's the best present I could ever give Tucker, as a new subscriber.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You couldn't think of anything else to get?
Not really, no. Any time that your birthday rolls around from now on, I'm just gonna make a new Google account and subscribe to Backlot Banter and say,
which doesn't get us any more views. It doesn't really support the channel. Just boom,
just inflates that number just by the smallest margin. All right. Now, speaking of things that Tucker has added, we have the other Nintendo movies.
Yes.
The ones that one of these is a long forgotten, swept under the rug, and the other one was a modest success, but I think a bit of a disappointment due to the time that it came out. Of course, latter they're talking about Pokemon Detective Pikachu, which released in summer or late spring, summer 2019. What had to go up against a little indie film called Avengers Endgame, if you remember correctly.
Very busy start to 2019 there.
And then also The Lion King that we mentioned earlier in this episode.
Aladdin.
Stuff like that. So, but we also have the original Super Mario Brothers movie here. Yeah.
And I just wanted to put these on here as a comparison of the Super Mario Bros. Movie as really the first real Nintendo movie that people will be thinking about going forward. I'm sure we are going to get more that match this movie's popularity and success, but that doesn't mean they haven't tried before. Detective Pikachu being a little bit weird because technically that is Nintendo collaborating with Game Freak and other companies to get this movie out. I believe they were working with Legendary as their production studio instead of Universal with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. But the movie Super Mario Bros. Is notorious, and actually we watched it in preparation for the animated film and enjoyed it a lot more than frankly I'd ever heard anyone talking about enjoying that film before. But it also is it's a fucking hell movie. Like, it did terribly at the box office. Look, it didn't even make up half its production budget, which is insane. 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, and just all sorts of like really gross and nasty facts about how annoying this movie was to work on, how terrible of a time the actors were having, nightmarish productions, Hoskins and Leguizamo often drunk on set, just crazy shit about this movie. It's like a failure across every fucking metric you can throw at it, which is the exact opposite of, except for critical score, though obviously the Super Mario Brothers movie has a much better critical score than Super Mario Bros. But yeah. Whoa, woof.
Yeah. It's so intriguing that they thought that would be the one to do it. That there's like this is the Mario movie, and we're putting it out in theaters, and it's gonna make us all the money, and that just didn't turn out to be true.
30 years ago.
Yeah. And then you had Detective Pikachu across the aisle here in 2019. Which had some steep competition, of course, but did end up, I found this very intriguing, it topped the international box office for its first 2 weeks of release.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really interesting. Over here in the States, we were high on Endgame fever, but the world over, they were like, I love Pokemon. Pokemon's the best. Yeah. And that proved to be true for 2 weeks. Which is a pretty good holdover, for having that international box office stuff in the summer for U.S. releases.
Yeah, and for me I think for many being one of the first like genuinely well-produced video game adaptation movies. I mean, I remember seeing this movie and be like, wow, I thought video game movies were not supposed to be like
awful,
uncreative and poorly produced and like just a cheap cash in. This actually might be the most creative video game movie we've seen because it is like a spin on the Pokemon world. It has a totally original story and characters and stuff. And frankly, I in retrospect, I've heard people just saying like, yeah, I guess it was a disappointment. That's why they're not making a sequel. But I mean, the movie made almost $450 million on a $150 million budget. That's almost 3 times its production budget. And a 68% of Rotten Tomatoes is not phenomenal, but it's
nothing to sneeze at.
It's fresh.
It's better than a lot of movies can ask for.
True. And an A- cinema score. I find it kind of surprising that they haven't given this another shot.
I think they are, though.
But I thought they canceled.
Oh, wait, I think the guy that they said was going to direct it moved on to a different film. So maybe this is... Yeah. It had a chance, and now it no longer has a chance. But I think that video game movies... I mean, maybe we'll see. We're in a weird place for video game movies right now, where basically all the people who want to future project are saying video game movies going to be the next big thing. Everyone's going to want to make a video game movie after Super Mario Brothers. We're going to be cashing in all sorts of video game IP, and that remains to be seen yet. Of course, we've got a couple of announcements off of the back of Super Mario Brothers, but nothing insane. Like we're getting another Street Fighter movie. They're making a sequel to that Mortal Kombat movie from 2021. Stuff like that,
Yeah. Minecraft with Jason Momoa.
Yeah, that's as I said, a weird one. Yeah. And Detective Pikachu did hold the record, just for a year for opening weekend for a video game movie until Sonic the Hedgehog, and then Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and then Super Mario Brothers.
Yep. Nice track record there. It's only uphill though. God, Tanner, I don't know. Do you think something else can beat this, like, coming up soon? I just don't think so.
Super
Mario Bros.
Oh.
If something can be bigger, like, because obviously this is the biggest video game adaptation as of now, but, like, man.
Oh, any other video game adaptation?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything bigger and more reputable, more recognizable than Mario. So, maybe Mario 2, maybe Donkey Kong Country, maybe Luigi's Mansion.
Donkey Kong would not make more money.
How dare you say that, Tucker? People love Donkey Kong.
You know what else I love?
They won't.
Shoes, Tanner. Shoes.
Oh, we're going back to the 1980s with Mario, and now we're going back to the 80s with Air. Okay. Air, courting a legend.
Fever, sweeping the nation. Yeah, they kind of, like, dropped that a little bit. I don't think that subtitle was, like, in the movie at all.
I saw it on Letterboxd and IMDb, like, for about a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they dropped it to just Air. It's cleaner, you know.
Yeah.
But no, this was the competition. The competition for Mario on April 5th. A Prime Studios film, which had a lot of buzz going into it, if you run in the right circles, and by that I mean film nerds, because this premiered at South by Southwest, and people were calling it one of the best movies ever made, which is insane. There were people saying that this is in April, well over 11 months from the Oscars, from the next Oscars, saying, like, look out, Viola Davis, original screenplay, Ben Affleck and director, all this stuff. Look out, everyone.
Best picture contender here. Yeah. This would have beaten Everything Everywhere All at Once if it had come out last year. Okay. We watched Air. We thought it was fine. Yeah. We don't get the hype. But this movie's done great for what it is. It really, its only flaw is that whoever fucking greenlit this movie and gave it its budget and purchased it at Amazon just put so much fucking money into this movie that it's an unreasonable ask for a movie of not only this kind, but of most kinds to make enough money to actually make this film profitable with a $90 million production budget and being purchased by Amazon for $100 million. Amazon's not going to see anywhere close to that. But if you stop to think, like, okay, that's not, like, this movie's fault. Like, it's not Ben Affleck's fault this movie cost so much. It's not. It's Amazon's fault for spending, like, an ungodly, unnecessary amount of money on this movie. For what it is, as an adult drama, business drama that released the same day as the Super Mario Bros. Movie, this movie's done great. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, a cinema score, currently sitting at $80 million worldwide. Awesome. Great. Yeah. Good job, Air.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's probably the best story of counter-programming that we have for this month.
Yes.
And maybe one of the best examples ever, because we have a slide a little bit later about some failed counter-programming that came a couple weeks after this release. But no, it is intriguing. It did well. Whenever I went to the theater, I saw seats sold for Air week after week. I was like, okay, people are still interested in it. I think it did have a dedicated audience and targeted them well. I think Amazon did a solid advertising campaign for this, and will probably do well when it hits Amazon Prime Video in about a week on May 12th. But yeah, I mean, as you said, Tucker, it did very well for a film of its nature, but it did not do very well for a film of its budget. It has not made back its production budget. It has not even made close to what Amazon purchased it for. So,
and this isn't even counting the advertising that they spent on this movie. But it's more money than they would have made if they had sent it like they planned straight to Prime Video.
Yep.
And so we've got another example of a streaming service wanting to put out their movie and making some money for them, or actually a lot of money in the other film's case. But I'm glad this film was released theatrically, that it's making a good amount of money. I mean, most movies we've talked about in the last, like, 7 months of doing this show would love to make $80 million.
Oh yeah. A couple movies that we're going to talk about in this episode would love to have made $80 million.
Would love to have made a fraction of that.
Yeah.
But Amazon, look, you make a lot of money because everyone uses your service for fucking everything now. But you're not you're not making production studio moves when you purchase the script for fucking Air for $125 million and then spend $90 million making it. What the hell's up with that?
I don't know. Who's to say? I mean, you gotta dole out for all the stars that they have in this, of course. I'd also like to mention, because we opened up our discussion on Air with it, conversation around awards has really died down for this film, hasn't it?
Conversation around the film has died down. Yeah. I was thinking about that as you were mentioning it. I'm like, I can't remember the last time someone brought up Air.
Yeah.
I mean, it had 2 weeks in the spotlight with people mostly either saying that, wow, what a great movie, or saying, I'm glad this launched alongside such a shitty kids movie like Mario. But we've moved past the need for Air.
That's true. We have progressed past the need for air. We are in a...
Stop breathing, everyone.
Finally. I know I have, and it's time for you to join along. Tucker, in protest, I'm not going to breathe for the rest of this episode.
Perfect. Yep. All right. Renfield. No good transition for Renfield. Let's just shit on this movie. Why don't we?
Okay.
Renfield.
I gotta give up. I gotta breathe.
We thought this movie would make a lot of money. You had it making
$30 million.
Its opening weekend, and as of 3 weeks into its release, it's sitting at 23.
Yep.
So something is amiss here. Something happened here, and I think, frankly, it's not that this movie wasn't marketed well. It's not that this movie didn't have an interesting draw. A new Dracula movie, Nicolas Cage as Dracula, having comedy and action and horror, all 3 genres that A, appeal to audiences, and B, make a good amount of money. But Renfield just has the X Factor, but the X Factor is just being bad, I guess.
Yeah.
And so no one fucking saw it. It has every draw you could throw at it. A good marketing campaign, compelling popular genres of the time, but it just refused to make money. People refused to go see this fucking movie, and I think that's hilarious.
It is really funny because we both dislike this movie.
Yes.
I mean, people have levied some things at it, like, why did this come out in April and not October? Sure. But I'm like, that's a good point, and it maybe would have done well if people were in more of a mood for a horror movie like this. But we have seen that people are in the mood for a horror movie like this in 2 separate scenarios outside of Renfield. Yes. So I don't know what it is. I think it must just be like, people are intrigued by Nick Cage being Dracula. Whenever we saw the trailer, commonly we would get some scattered laughs and snickers about like, oh, it's Nick Cage's Dracula. That's funny. Yeah,
when he does that move and he floats up into the air and goes, let's eat, and everyone's like, oh, hey, ha, ha. But that was apparently it.
It just didn't translate. I think
people got enough.
Watching
the trailer.
Do you think it is because Nick Cage has sort of become synonymous with bad movies now?
It's certainly possible. Yeah. I mean, he is a big name, but he's not a box office draw, and I don't think he has been since the early 2000s. I mean, notoriously, his career has tanked in such ways that he's, or at least was, deep in debt, had to take a bunch of roles that he wasn't really excited about. He's a personality, but he's certainly not a box office draw that I think they were kind of banking on him being. The idea of him being Dracula is novel in concept and certainly was the element of this film that most people were talking about, both through the trailers and when the film actually released, and he was good in the role. He was the best part of that movie without a shadow of a doubt. Yes. But I think we're just noticing that Universal monster movie concepts just aren't, they don't do it for people anymore. I mean, as you see here on this first fact, this was announced in 2014, Tanner, which is funny. And it went in development hell after the failure of The Mummy, Tom Cruise's The Mummy, which also tried to put a spin on a new concept, a modern concept of what a Universal monster movie based film can be with, this is just straight up an action movie. And then Renfield just complicated that a little more by making it a comedy action horror movie. Yeah. What the fuck's up with that?
As I mentioned, by the Nick Cage factor, which, I just sort of stumbled into on this conversation, but I think might be a factor. This is Nick Cage's first live-action studio feature since Ghost Rider 2, over a decade ago, which is really a sorry state of affairs. And, he, as you said, Tucker, he is a cultural figure. But again, I just don't know if, the general public would associate Nick Cage with a movie I have to go see. A movie that is going to be good and instills confidence in an audience member. I think it's.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a. Sadly, because Nick Cage, we are not the Nick Cage aficionados in our social circle, Tucker. That belongs
Hmm.
to our good friend Joe Wainwright.
Yes.
But we both like Nick Cage.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
find him an intriguing actor, and he's done good work. I mean, I saw Pig when it came out. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
Nick Cage
Yeah.
has recently said that he thinks that it's easily the best of his work, and I would probably agree. But no, this film was a big bomb, big old tank at the box office. And
Yeah.
as things do now, when they're a big old tank at the box office, they just push it to VOD as quickly as possible.
Yep.
It's already out on VOD.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do with these kind of like pushed releases is be like, okay, all right, we can't stick around in theaters. The audience has shown so little interest that it's not worth us giving money to these theaters to like have our film shown. So let's try to bank on the fact that people will think this is an like new movie, huge release coming to VOD. Oh my god, I can watch it at home, and the movie just came out. That's awesome. And is that going to happen?
Nope.
I really don't know. A couple other interesting things here. Originally supposed to be directed by Dexter Fletcher of Rocket Man fame, which is a very good movie. But then he also did this same month a movie called Ghosted on Netflix. Netflix.
No, Apple TV Plus.
Oh, sorry, Apple TV Plus. My bad.
Yeah.
I can't keep them straight. Which is the worst movie that we saw this month.
Is worse than Renfield. 100% is
Easily.
worse than Renfield.
And would it have been better with the deft hand of Dexter Fletcher? I have no fucking clue.
Potentially? I don't know.
The funniest thing about this, and we just kind of glossed over it when we were talking about what a big failure this movie was, is Universal thought this movie would be fucking massive because they put almost the budget of a blockbuster movie. And I said this is a blockbuster budget. I mean, this is only $10 million less than what Warner Brothers put into Shazam! Fury of the Gods last month. This cost about the same as John Wick Chapter 4. So they really thought that this was going to be big. And I think there's just a disconnect between like the reality of what people are interested in and what studio heads think is worth putting money into to make money back. This is just a fucking sinkhole of a movie.
Yeah, it is a sinkhole. And as you mentioned, Tucker, the Dracula premise didn't exactly bring people out, but let's take a peer back into the past and see if it has. Because what you've added here is an interesting bit of a statistic. It is Dracula movies. We have such classics as Dracula Untold from 2014, which was another attempt at like a dark universe, Universal Monster cinematic universe. You have Van Helsing starring Hugh Jackman. You have Bram Stoker's Dracula,
which is sort of another attempt at starting a cinematic universe.
Back before cinematic universes were a thing. I think that was like 2004 or something like that.
Van Helsing, yes.
Yeah. And then you have Bram Stoker's Dracula back from the 1990s, which is, a couple of scattered and interesting and different attempts at adapting the Dracula mythos.
Yes, but also, notably, squint your eyes out, get your fucking telescope and your microscope, all these movies made a lot of money. So, Renfield it might be one of the biggest failures of a Dracula-based concept film. Even a movie as notorious as Van Helsing and Dracula Untold made both over $200 million, and Van Helsing hit $300.
Damn.
Who the fuck knows why that movie got $160 million production budget in 2004 money? So that's even more in real human money. But wow, like look at all these movies having budgets. Well, two of them have similar budgets, and then one of them is a much cheaper movie because it's more of a small scale thing, not as action focused or like CGI focused. But Dracula movies are so fascinating to me. No. And the reason I wanted to make this is because I'm thinking about Dracula and I'm trying the only Dracula based movies I've seen are like Hotel Transylvania 1, the original Dracula, Nosferatu, a Bela Lugosi movie from a little bit later called Return of the Vampire. There's so many goddamn vampire movies and people just keep on trying it. Yeah. And wow, Renfield is just like a huge fucking blemish on this history of Dracula-based movies.
This reminds me of an interesting sort of like cultural film observation that I remember from a while ago, which is this is a far cry from anything that we'd be talking about here, but like it has to do with like the political party of the president and the popularity of vampire films versus zombie films.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, it's a weird connection. I forget what exactly the thing is, but it's like
correlation equals causation.
I think so, and it's just a weird correlation that somebody drew. I think it was when there is a Republican in office, vampire movies are more popular versus when there's a Democrat in office, zombie movies are more popular. I might have gotten that flipped. But yeah, it's something to do with like the political themes of both of these like monstrous creatures and stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just something that occurred to me as we talk about the presence of Dracula films, vampire films. Speaking of Dracula films, we got another one coming from Chloe Zhao sometime soon.
Yes.
Although I don't think.
Well, not only Chloe Zhao, but also Robert Eggers doing a Nosferatu movie, and Last Voyage of Demeter coming out in August of this year.
Although I say that Chloe Zhao thing, but I think she's working on a different movie right now. Something of hers is going into production that's not her future Dracula Western or whatever it's supposed to be.
I'm excited for
whatever,
that.
Whatever
awesome.
it is, whenever it comes out, it's going to be really interesting. Okay, another horror movie, Tucker. Strictly horror this time.
Yeah.
The Pope's Exorcist.
Now, we were just talking about how Renfield should have released in October because people aren't interested in horror movies now. That's just fucking wrong. The Pope's Exorcist made $55 million worldwide on an $18 million production budget, making back half its production budget in its opening weekend, or I guess probably because of the worldwide total, international total, probably making back that production budget in its opening weekend, and just being a success. A small movie that's not going to stick around, but made some money.
It's not going to stick around. It's on VOD already, just like Renfield, but it did make quite a spot of money, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it points to the fact that like people are just more about exorcism movies now, and maybe that needs to be some sort of correlation to to American politics of why we're obsessed with exorcisms now above vampires or zombies or anything like that. We did get a sequel announced for this already, and me and my friends, not including you, Tucker, because you're not my friend. You're my business associate here at Backlot Banter.
That's a great point.
We went to go see this basically on a whim, and we're
yes.
quite entertained by it. Like, it is legitimately interesting, and a cut above the other exorcism movies that I have seen, at the very least.
Yeah.
Because it takes some big swings. And maybe that's why, you know, this film, I guess it didn't get good reviews. It's got a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.1 on IMDb. But regardless, there has to be something about this. Is Russell Crowe more of a box office draw than Nicolas Cage?
I have no idea. Frankly, I can't tell why this was a success.
Mm-hmm.
No, none of us had any faith in this movie being a big deal. Obviously, it didn't show up in our top fives, which we were very wrong about. But also, I just like I can point to reasons why Renfield didn't make money, but I don't know if I can point to why The Pope's Exorcist did. Like,
I think it had to. It's just like, I think if people want because people want to go to a horror movie. I don't know if people want to go to a horror comedy necessarily.
Sure.
People want a horror movie, and that's what The Pope's Exorcist is. It's just a straight down the line. It's about the devil taking over a kid. That's a tried and true cinematic formula, and it worked. It worked once again. And maybe people were convinced by Russell Crowe riding around on his little Vespa, his little scooter.
That was actually surprisingly popular on social media. As this movie was coming out. But now you say here fourth best opening for a horror film this year. What are the other ones?
Well, let's see. Let's see if we can remember, Tucker. We got Megan, of course.
Yeah.
I think you got Evil Dead Rise above this as well.
Oh, of course. True.
And another one or two more. Hang on, let me find out. 2023 horror film openings.
But I mean, hey, one more, Tanner, because if there's a fourth, then there's three.
Oh yeah, there's only one more.
Then we've nailed down. There's something obvious. Oh, duh.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Of course. Interesting to have the Pope's Exorcist on that list. You got entries in long-running, super popular horror franchises, Evil Dead and Scream. You got the beginning of the next big horror franchise, and then you've got the beginning of the other next big horror franchise, The
Hopefully.
Pope's Exorcist 2.
Listen,
gonna
man,
make $1 billion. Let's go.
I'm not gonna say anything about this film because I don't want to spoil it for you. But the ending of this film legitimately gets me intrigued and kind of excited for sequels to this film.
Sure.
Especially knowing what they did in the third act. You got to watch The Pope's Exorcist at some point.
And hey, I can because it's already out on VOD.
Exactly. And now we mentioned the failed counter programming a little bit earlier in the episode, and here we go. We're going to talk about it right now. Because
you know what? No, people can't get enough of, Tanner.
What?
Exorcism movies.
Well, Tucker, it's interesting that you say that. Nefarious, of course, was a smaller film put out in less theaters than The Pope's Exorcist was. But, made a paltry $3.5 million. I could not dig up a budget on this thing, so...
No, I tried.
That only leads me to assume it's some sort of money laundering scheme.
Yes.
Much worse reviews than The Pope's Exorcist had. This has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. A little higher IMDb, which is interesting, but IMDb is basically a cesspool, so you can't really trust them as far as you can throw them, which is difficult because they're an app.
Yes, can't throw that. But so Nefarious, you saw, was a secret Christian propaganda movie in the back end. Didn't make any money. Might have cost. Honestly, it might have made money. I can't see that this movie cost very much, though. It's already dead, so it doesn't even have the potential to make $5 million.
No,
at this point.
No,
but if this was a $1.5 million budget movie, they might have made money on it, which is sad to think about.
Yeah, and then you had the opposite end of just a dire, awful, bottom of the barrel, below the barrel film with Nefarious versus one that we were both very, very surprised by, a hidden gem, as we called it in our review, Mafia Mama, which didn't do much better, unfortunately.
No. In fact, it did basically the same, if not worse, comparatively.
Yeah. It certainly cost more than whatever Nefarious would have cost, but has only made about $4.5 million total.
Oh,
has a worse Rotten Tomato score and a worse IMDb score. What's wrong with you people? What's wrong with you?
What the fuck is happening?
Have you seen both of these films, or are you just throwing out numbers? What's going on here?
Oh God, yeah, this is sad. It's really sad for me because this is one of my favorite movies of the year. I really do think that if people give it a shot, that they will really enjoy it, but I just think it doesn't have much appeal. With that $1 million budget, I think they spent too much on it. Obviously they spent too much on it, but even retrospectively, okay, you could have done a little bit worse production design, saved some money on that, and lost a little bit less money in the runtime in the long run. But who am I to tell Bleecker Street what to do? I don't know what I'm doing, but the funniest thing about these movies and why we put them under the headline of failed counter programming is they were the examples of this week being just weirdly crowded for no fucking reason. Yeah. 4 rated R movies released the week after Super Mario Bros. Movie to try to capitalize on, if everyone is going to see Mario, then what are the real serious people gonna want to go see? Nefarious, Mafia Mama, Renfield, The Pope's Exorcist, 4 rated R movies releasing on the exact same fucking day, and one of them made money. The Pope's Exorcist. Yeah, The Pope's Exorcist ended up coming out on top at number 2 that week. I just pulled that up. And then you had John Wick Chapter 4, then Air, then Renfield, and then Dungeons and Dragons, and then Suzume and Mafia Mama. Well, Suzume we'll talk about in just a moment. But yeah, bad stuff. Just and then, silly. And then Nefarious is somewhere at the it's number 10 that week. I just peeking back. But yeah, really interesting move of all of these studios trying to push these films into the second weekend, trying to soak up that adult audience in the wake of Super Mario Brothers, and just nobody really succeeding. True, but that's not necessarily true, because there was counter programming from before Mario came out that people were going to see. They were still going to see Air. They were still going to see John Wick. Those movies came out before, and people were still going to see them. That were the counter programming. But then 4 studios were like, we got rated R movies that most people don't care about. Let's all put them on the same day. Good fucking job, Hollywood. And I just have to reiterate, just hopping back quick to just shit on Renfield a bit more. Perfect. It could not beat John Wick and Air
in their
Yeah.
third and fourth weeks.
Yes. Crazy shit. Crazy.
God damn. What a sad tale, Tucker. All right. Now, Tucker, let's go to a romantic tale of sorts and
Yeah.
talk about Suzume. A Makoto Shinkai film from Japan, an anime film. And he's really like the S tier name in putting out these types of films. Of course,
Yeah.
you have the ones that are based on cinematic adaptations, or not adaptations, but cinematic versions or installments of popular anime, like One Piece or Demon Slayer. That's the one. I don't watch a lot of anime, so forgive me. But no, like, and then you have this guy who's just putting out like original stories, and they're also doing very, very well. It's very intriguing to me that what a name this guy is. It's really interesting. And Suzume is no slouch in terms of his box office record. It has a total of 168 million, of course, making most of that overseas. Only making about 10 million in the States here. It is the fourth highest grossing Japanese film of all time.
Yes.
Which is, again, super interesting. But Tucker, what do you think about the box office story of Suzume?
There's one number here you gotta zero in on. I don't know how they fucking did it. $13 million production budget.
Yep.
Insane. That is less than a third of what they spent on fucking Mafia Mama. and Suzume coming out of Japan, doing very well there, a lot of buzz, and just Makoto Shinkai is the next Ghibli. Like his studio and his movies are popular, they have a consistent style and tone, and they keep making money. 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, $168 million worldwide on a $13 million budget. I saw this movie. I liked it a lot. I didn't like it 96% on Rotten Tomatoes a lot, but like it's just so nice to see original, high quality anime movies from other countries do just really, really well.
Yeah,
I think this is probably my second favorite story of this month. You got Mario being a billion, and oh god, that's it's shooting to the top of all the charts. But like Suzume also came out this month, another animated movie, and just did really, really goddamn well.
Yeah, animation is cinema, Tucker, and we're all about it, apparently. Yes. The world over.
And what, interestingly enough, you started off saying that this is a more romantic slide to go to, but while Makoto Shinkai's, most of his films focus a lot on the more romantic side of animation, he actually made this film in opposition to that, to take away the romantic edge that he felt that his movies had been straying too similarly to. So, in this movie, the main male protagonist turns into a chair, which is A, funny,
yes,
B, really well animated, that fucking chair does a lot of shit, and 3, makes his film feel really weird and unique. It's like, oh god, the one with the guy love interest is a fucking chair.
But also, I have to say, she still like kisses the chair and stuff like that. So it's not like if he didn't want to make a romance film, I'd say it's a bit of a failure. But hey, nonetheless, I also like this movie. But it is still a romance to some degree. So hey, I digress. I liked it.
Let's go over to something a little
less
wacky.
Romantic.
Yeah, significantly less romantic. Okay. Beau is Afraid from Ari Aster released. And this is a peculiar fucking story to like analyze. There's a lot of numbers here to look at. Number one,
I'm overwhelmed already.
Didn't even make $10 million.
Yeesh.
Worldwide. Yeesh. Barely got an international release. But A24, God bless them, they let Ari Aster get this out of his system. And they gave him $35 million to do it with.
Which,
less than the budget of Mafia Mama.
Yeah, I love that we're using that as a metric now. But, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't sound like a lot. But, A24 doesn't make big, over-the-top films. They're not making blockbusters.
This is their highest costing film of all time.
Yeah, their most expensive film of all time. And did not end up paying out for them. It did not end up paying out in big bucks for them. Not necessarily that I think they were like aiming for this too. There's a lot of like speculation about the dynamic between Ari Aster making Beau is Afraid and the A24 producers. I don't really know what truth there is to it, but of course, about a year ago now, maybe more than a year ago, I remember, this back when this film was called Disappointment Boulevard, there was the rumor that it was going to be 4 hours long, and again, rumors saying that
Jeez.
A24 was like, you can't put out a 4-hour movie, you gotta cut it down, and it came out around 3 hours. And yeah, I mean, still the most expensive film that they've ever done. I don't know if we're ever gonna get a budget for something like this ever again. I mean, I'm sure.
No.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. And Ari Aster has already moved on. He's working on a horror comedy western, something like that. But yeah, really interesting that we have this film, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
which is a weird.
Yeah.
It
just. They gave him the money to do it. He did it, and it turned out basically the way that we frankly predicted that it would. Movie's long, movie's weird. Ari Aster's just coming up with the craziest shit he can, and it's not making money. And I don't think they really expected it to make money.
No.
I think they were just kind of like satiating him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, no studio, like very little studio oversight. Here's some money. Make the movie you've been thinking of for a long time, because it's also based on a short film that he made a number of years ago. But I think that with a little more studio oversight, like we have seen from his other films, both of which were very successful and made him the name that he was, that allowed him to get this kind of budget, he can return to being a director that makes money. His movies just need to cost way the fuck less, and someone needs to tell him, look, your movie can't be 3 hours long, and then he's going to start making money again. This is not the last that we've heard of Ari Aster. This is going to be the weird, passion project that he had early on in his career that lost him a fuckload of money. But I liked the movie. I think it is just a really pure creative vision, but studios can't keep doing this, because this is not healthy for them to do. It's just interesting for them to do.
Tucker, let me say something right here. I don't give a goddamn what it's healthy for studios to do. I don't give a goddamn if they make money on anything. I care about the movies first and foremost, but it's just interesting to talk about the box office on the tail end.
Of course.
So A24, give him $50 million, give him $100 million. I don't give a fuck. Just let him make whatever he wants to make. I don't give a fuck if you lose all that money. Who really cares? But what's really interesting to me about this is that it premiered in April. It premiered on April Fool's Day at a Alamo Drafthouse in Brooklyn, when everyone there thought they were going to go see the director's cut of Midsommar.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a director's cut for Midsommar. Is that something that has not actually released? Was it not real?
No, I think I heard about it a little bit before. I think it does exist, and it's like 3 hours long, which is how they got the Beau is Afraid thing in there. But no, it was just an April Fool's prank on the part of A24 and Ari Aster, and they're like, surprise everyone, you get to watch Beau is Afraid before anyone else in the country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I mean, hey, if you're showing up for the director's cut of Midsommar, you're a hardcore Ari Aster fan.
Yes,
you deserve a little treat.
Yeah, exactly. And this also had the second best per theater average for A24. So while we say it was a failure, like a box office failure,
a stat.
It has a stat, and people want to go see it because I think, as much as Adam Sandler was probably the draw for Uncut Gems, Ari Aster is a draw for his dedicated fan base.
True.
That fan base isn't big, not big enough for this film to be a financial success, but big enough to where it is, putting up stats for A24. Which is why I don't know if they view this as an all-out failure all across the board as well.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. I mean, A24 is a small enough production company to where this is a pretty big blow to them. Most of their movies are much smaller budgeted and make a good amount of money on those budgets. This is like the least smart financial decision I think they've ever made. But if they go back to that, it'll balance out and be whatever. But also has another stat, one that you skipped over here: highest per screen average of 2023, $80,099 per screen in its initial limited release. So like, it has a stat, but a stat doesn't mean a success. So I don't know. Just like I like talking about these kind of movies when we're comparing them to things like Renfield failing. Movies just make like different amounts of money. It's weird, and this is a fucking bruise, weird story, but like a fun bruise. It's a bruise I want to poke and like mess with.
Don't poke that bruise, Tucker. It's just gonna make it worse. Hey guys, Tanner and Tucker from 24 Hours in the Future here. We just forgot to talk about Evil Dead Rise in that
Just
original
slipped
recording.
our mind. I just never made a slide. I don't know how it happened.
I don't know either. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Evil Dead Rise right now. So,
Yeah. Because, frankly, it's the second biggest story of this month. I honestly have no idea how it slipped our mind. Like, we had Mario to focus on, we had a bunch of other, like, weird horse shit. Evil Dead Rise came out and is a big deal.
Yes.
Great movie. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this whole conversation that we had yesterday was about, like, how everything sort of paled in comparison to Mario, and this was the biggest success story about, like, counter-programming the biggest family movie of the year. This is obviously a gory...
With another big family movie.
Yeah, it is a movie about a family in that regard. But it's big, it's rated R, you know, it's gory, it's all this stuff. It's a lot of fun, I'll say that. And it's a success. The highest grossing film of the Evil Dead franchise really gave it a shot in the arm, I think, because as we say here, Lee Cronin has expressed there's 4 ideas that he has rolling around in that twisted brain of his about sequel ideas. But even like Sam Raimi or Bruce Campbell said that they want to make the Evil Dead franchise more of a every other year kind of thing, as opposed to every 10 years kind of thing.
Yes, well, and I think that's important because we don't have very many currently ongoing horror franchises that have been going consistently for like the last 5 or 6 years. Scream came back. Last year we have Megan starting now to sort of come back. We also had the Halloween movies. That's kind of like the really only example of a franchise returning and continuing. But I don't know why it took them so long to make this. You see here, the script of this film originally started as plans for both a sequel to Evil Dead 2013 and a sequel to Army of Darkness, which I would like to see.
Absolutely.
But the reason that I'm so confused on why it took them so long, like a whole decade to make another one, is the last movie made 5 times its budget. And then this one is making more than 5 times its budget. So, like, these movies make a ton of money. Horror movies are cheap. People like to go see them. And I like Evil Dead enough, and I think there's enough potential to sort of interconnect all these worlds and stuff that, yeah, I can't wait to see this become, like, the next big horror franchise, but really one of the only consistent horror franchises of what's going on right now.
Yeah, you're talking about that, Tucker. I mean, you talk about the horror franchise that we have right now, and you know we're getting another Insidious movie this year. We're getting We're getting another installment
after a break, though.
Yeah, another installment in the Conjuring universe this year. But we don't have we have new Scream movies. Halloween is done now. Saw, of course, we're getting another Saw movie. Yeah. The Exorcist is planned for a trilogy. The Exorcist Believer, excuse me, which we talked about already, but you will hear about in a little bit towards the latter half of this episode. But yeah, I'm certainly excited to get more Evil Dead films, particularly if they're coming from interesting creatives like Lee Cronin, who really popped onto the scene with this one.
Yeah, and considering that he has ideas for sequels and that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and all the producers were very happy with the direction that he took this and leaving behind other elements of the franchise but sort of tying them in unique ways, I think that he'll probably be the next voice for this. And frankly, I would not be surprised if we get Lee Cronin's Evil Dead trilogy. And we've got Fede Alvarez there sort of like in the middle as a stopgap.
People were talking about, bringing together these three versions because, as we know, there's 3 versions of the Book of the Dead, and how I think they've talked about how all of these versions kind of coexist with each other. The Raimi trilogy, Fede Alvarez's version in 2013, and now Evil Dead Rise. Yeah. I mean, talk what I wanted to do, since we brought up his 4 ideas, is I want to run these by you. Have you read what his 4 ideas were? Okay.
The only thing I heard was that there was going to be some sort of Spider-Man No Way Home equivalent for the Evil Dead world. The 3 heroes, I guess, coming together, 3 Necronomicons. That was 3 times the Deadites.
Yeah, I think that was something that he said sort of offhandedly. This is not that's not included in the 4 that he gave.
There's 5 ideas.
Yeah, in this Variety interview. So, the first idea is I want you to tell me which one of these you'd like to see the most. And audience,
I'll write these most likely out of 5.
Okay, sounds good. The story behind the Book of the Dead Quote,
Ooh.
"We have a history in this
Even
film,
origins,
and that's presented through the vinyl. So there's a story to be told there.
Yes,
It's not by
I would
accident."
love to see that.
Yeah.
I would love to see that, and I think that if they do want to make Evil Dead something that people have, modern people have a bigger connection to, telling an origin story is very common for horror franchises nowadays, and I would love to see that story.
And
Evil Dead in the old days, sort of archaeology.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I get that 4 out of 5 chance of actually happening.
The vinyl we hear is from like the 1920s or 30s, I think we know. And as we know from the Bruce Campbell cameo, he's there. Ash is there. Lee Cronin has confirmed that is Ash on the recording.
I thought it was just a fun Easter egg.
No. He's like, that is a time-traveling Ash Williams back in the 1920s.
Yes!
Yes.
That sounds so cool.
Yes. So, honestly, Bruce Campbell could make a comeback to the franchise if they do that one. Beth takes her chainsaw on the road. Quote, "Somebody that survives picks up the chainsaw at the end and where they might go." I don't know.
Okay. That's just like a sequel to Evil Dead Rise, I guess?
Just a direct sequel to Evil Dead Rise. Beth and the little girl. You know.
Potentially, sure. It depends on what my definition of Lee Cronin's trilogy is, that if it includes an origin movie and also like the Spider-Man No Way Home version, and a sequel, is that who the hell knows? But sure. Yeah, I think that has a reasonable chance of happening.
Okay. The apartment building. There's also the aftermath in this building and who encounters it. And I've often thought, what happens when the cleanup crew shows up?
Oh man, this guy's a man after my own heart. I have always wanted to make a horror movie that's like the day after the big killing, or like the town members being like, "Oh shit, what happened?" Like everyone figuring it out, but like not even a horror movie. Just like people be like, "What the fuck happened here?"
Yeah.
I would kill. I would kill for this to happen. That is 5 out of 5 excitement for me.
Yep.
But
like 1 out of 5.
1 out of 5 likelihood.
What studio is going to be like? So it's not a horror movie? No.
Maybe it is.
Yeah. Who's to say?
There could be like dead-eyed body parts that are like coming back or something.
Oh,
like that.
that'd be if they're getting attacked by like hands and like heads and stuff like that. That'd be cool. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, back to the woods. Quote, "Because of the opening and the closing, there's that continuation of how this evil has a gate. That brings us back to that forest context, which excites me because I love that I broke the mold, but wouldn't it be fun now if I went back to the cabin in the woods? It would be a cool journey."
Yeah, so that's just another example of a sequel.
Yeah.
Right, I guess. That forest and cabin in the woods part of Evil Dead Rise was like the most disconnected. It kind of like it almost didn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
But so I guess I would like to see that, but I don't think it's interesting enough of an idea for a studio.
We also saw how it ended. Yeah. We saw the ending of that Evil Dead movie already.
True.
Of that story and of the cabin. We know how it begins and we know how it ends. So you know, and the rest of it is the rest of it is just like a relationship sort of drama thing, and one girl looks at the Book of the Dead and then becomes evil, and that's where we see it start up at the beginning of the film. So yeah. If I had to pick any of them, it's the time traveling 1920s.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you can bring back Bruce Campbell. That'd be the one that I'd vote for, frankly.
Yeah.
And if we can, maybe do like we could do a Max special presentation of the apartment building the day after.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do that, Warner Brothers. You know what to do with your money.
But yeah, cool stuff all around. Tucker, anything else to say about the box office story of Evil Dead Rise?
I think the most important thing to note about this is that this was not supposed to be a box office story. This was supposed to be an HBO Max release. This film was planned and budgeted accordingly for that release, and then they're like, well, I guess we could make some money off of this. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, studios.
It had really good test screenings, was really the thing that pushed it. Which seems to be the story with a lot of these, like, streaming horror films that get a theatrical release, is that they just, the test screenings are super positive. I mean...
Evil Dead, Smile, Air.
Well, you got another one coming in this summer with The Boogeyman, which was a streaming release that had good test screenings, and so they pushed it to a theatrical release. So we'll see how that one ends up as well. But yeah, super happy we got Evil Dead Rise. Don't know how it slipped our mind the first time, but we're going to toss you right into our conversation on Guy Ritchie's The Covenant.
Yeah!
Guy Ritchie at the box office this year. Took an L with Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, in March, and then he just like, fuck it, following it right up with Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. My Ritchie's The Covenant is what he called it, I think. And didn't do a whole lot better. In fact,
No.
will probably end up doing worse than Operation Fortune. Has made a grand total of about $14 million, putting that up against Operation Fortune's 38 about. Is a bit more expensive, and I guess reviewed better. So that's
Yeah.
something. That's something.
Reviewed better to one Tanner Dykstra and Joanne Wright,
True.
who saw these movies, and this one was way the fuck better. Apparently, I've not seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really interesting movie, and the only reason I really wanted to bring this up is because we did not talk about Operation Fortune. This guy put out 2 movies back to back, but the real reason was that Operation Fortune had to be delayed because it features Ukrainian terrorists as its antagonists, and because of the war in Ukraine, they didn't think that would be a good idea in the political climate.
Well, also worth noting that they did put it out. They put it out in Russia on its
really
on time, and then just like released it a couple months later in the States and other countries.
Okay.
So playing both sides, are we there? Whatever studio put this out, I guess we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is another one where, or The Covenant is another one where this is going to release, it did release on Amazon Prime Video internationally, only had a theater release here, and will be going on VOD this month in the States as well.
Yeah. Another one that's interesting for like how much money they put into this, but frankly, I don't think they really expected it to make that back. If they did the style of theatrical release only in the United States, if you look at international, I mean that's nothing. That's like a few theaters worth of money somewhere across the globe.
At the same time, however, you have to realize that this is a story about the U.S. military, and how interesting is that going to be outside of a U.S. market? Not very, would be my guess. And not very, I think, was the guess that they landed on as well for the release strategy. But I digress. Didn't do well regardless.
But Guy Ritchie still got other movies in the works. Even though he did 2 movies back to back that made no fucking money.
Yeah. He's got not the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's some title like that, like the Department of Ungentlemanly Warfare or something like that.
Sure.
With Henry Cavill, and that's coming out, and it seems to be like sort of the Man from U.N.C.L.E., a bit of a Kingsman kind of thing. Yeah.
Frankly, returning to what people enjoy from him most.
Tucker, let's round it out here with one of the last 2 releases of April, starting with Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Speaking of, we say international release for The Covenant, no international release for this one. Nope. It is adapted from a Judy Blume novel, which is interesting.
Apparently one of the most seminal books of all time that I had never heard of up to this point. But it said that in the trailers, and I guess I maybe believe them.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker, we were never going to be the target demographic for that book anyway.
No, true.
But and I had my train of thought, and Tucker, you just went and derailed it. I can't believe it.
I'm so sorry, buddy. What about the fact that they really expected this to do a lot better? The predictions for this movie had a lot higher numbers before its opening weekend. It had a budget of $30 million. I think they really expected this to bring in sort of a multi-generational element of older women who have read this to their children, moms and daughters and families that have this story about a family growing up, sort of retrospectively looking back at the 80s or
70s. 1970 is when it's
this movie's set. But people just didn't really care that much. I mean, it did well critically, very well.
99% on Rotten Tomatoes.
On Rotten Tomatoes. That's probably the best reviewed movie we've talked about on this show.
Yeah, it's point. And you know what? It is a good movie. Like, there's no denying that.
It absolutely is.
But I remember where my train of thought was going, Tucker. So this is a Judy Blume adaptation, the very first to receive a full theatrical release. Which is interesting because Judy Blume is a name that I'm familiar with. I don't think I've read any of her books, but I might have back in like elementary or middle school. I'm not recalling. But at the same time, so this was released, and I think she also has Judy Blume has some sort of like documentary or TV series put out on Amazon Prime at the same time. So yeah, it was just interesting to me. It was originally dated for a September release. Not sure what the thinking was moving it to April. It's not like it would have had any big competition last September.
No.
And to its credit, the target demographic did show out for this thing. 55% of the audience were women aged over 45 who would have been the very first ones to go and see this film. And only 6% of them were of the 13 to 17 age demographic. So this story was not connecting with whom it was about, but whom read the book originally.
Yeah, but that's also the exact reason why this movie is not making money, is for a movie of this kind that is intended sort of for a family audience. You gotta bring in the families. You can't just bring in the parents. The reason why animated movies make a lot of money is because kids want to go see them, and then the parents have to come too to bring their kids, and so then you get 3 or 4 or 5 tickets out of a family going.
Yep.
But if it's just the moms going with maybe like a friend because they both read this book when they were kids, that's 2 tickets from 2 families.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I think that's exactly why this film wasn't the success that maybe they were hoping for. It's because the target demographic, you're right, I think is those mothers, but I think it's the mothers with children that also care about it that they were really hoping to capitalize on for this film to be bigger than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And 6% of the audience being teenagers is like microscopic. That's like what's the word for a statistic? It's like statistically,
it's an anomaly.
Yeah, it's a statistic anomaly, I guess. It's like basically that doesn't even count. Like that could have basically not happened. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. I mean, in talking, you say that they were hoping for this to be a success. They did project this at a $7 to $9 million opening. The studio did.
So I was wrong about that.
And did just like it slightly came under those expectations. I mean. Yeah. I think that they were putting out like a best case scenario for this thing, so it nearly came up to their best case scenario, the bottom of their best case scenario.
Yes.
But I think another thing is, and this is something that I know a couple people on Twitter that I follow were lamenting a little bit, is that this film has a PG-13 rating. Because of its discussions of puberty, of periods, and things like that. You know, things that naturally a story about like this would be about, what the book was about. And maybe that was why families didn't feel comfortable taking their children to this movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which is not fair, frankly. I don't think. Like, it's just, it's a fact of life, and it's a fantastic story about this. And there's nothing inappropriate about this movie. It's very lovable. It's very sweet. It's a very nice story with some good like family connections and stuff like that. This is a film that I would feel would be very good for families to go see, but they just didn't. Yeah,
and like sort of educational for kids to like sort of be like, okay, what can I learn from this? And exactly that's what the film feels geared towards, is teaching kids some lessons about being comfortable in your body, and about being comfortable exploring more complex conversations with your parents, and being confident in yourself, and respecting others who are different from you. Like, these are the themes of this movie are for like teenagers who are trying to learn more about the world. And then none of them went and fucking saw it.
I don't know. They're missing out because it's a good movie. God. Anyway. Taking a wild swing over in the opposite direction. The opposite of a family-friendly film in Sisu. So yeah, this is as the trailers often touted, the most fun you can see most fun you can have watching Nazis get destroyed. Yeah. And it had a small release, as I maybe thought it would. I didn't put this in my top 5 because I did hear things about this getting a somewhat limited release. It did only about 1,000 theaters, $3,000 per theater though, so not too terrible. And if we're talking about the demographics of who's going to see which movie, 73% of this audience was male. About half of them were in that 18 to 34 age range. So exactly who you think is going to go see Sisu went to go see Sisu.
Yep. But apparently not enough of them.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge market. That's what most of the movies that make a ton of money sort of capitalize on, is young and young adult male audiences. 70% is fucking huge, but also like, this movie I expected to do better, to be 100% honest, and that's why I had it in my top 5. I think that they did a lot. I think they did the best they could do with that marketing campaign. I saw constant trailers on Twitter. Constant thing about don't worry, the dog doesn't get hurt. Oh my god, this movie's the best thing since sliced bread. It's like John Wick with Nazis. They did a really good job marketing this movie. But I think maybe just people were John Wicked out because they all saw John Wick. And so they didn't see Sisu. And that's unfortunate because I think this is I think it was a good movie. You and I had a fun time seeing it.
Yeah.
And it is like distinct enough of an action movie to where I thought that it could coexist alongside John Wick. But even though it has 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a very small budget. It will probably make that budget back, but I don't see it making money, which is unfortunate because like they tried their damnedest to get this movie to capture that John Wick audience, and it just didn't.
Yeah. This is a Lionsgate one. They acquired this after it screened at TIFF. And then another one that this is a common thread throughout our discussion, and I think it will continue to be because it seems to be very prevalent with 2023 movies, is a very, I guess a truncated exclusive theatrical run. Studios are very eager to put things on VOD this year. It went on VOD only 18 days after its theater debut. And maybe this will have a better life on VOD. Your dad's sitting at home in his easy chair wanting to watch some Nazis get blowed up. And this is the best way to do it, I think. It was popular amongst a few key figures. Apparently, reportedly, Patton Oswalt and Quentin Tarantino both had private screenings of this film.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, Sisu, wish you'd made more money, but
it will make its budget back, but it probably, as you said, we saw a lot of marketing for this film, and it probably won't do that. I said it last month, and I'll say it again. I thought it would do better as well, really because of the perfect marketing decision to put it as, I think across the country, the last trailer before John Wick Chapter 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess it didn't really pay off. Maybe a month gap is a bit too long for the modern American mind to keep track of something, and we're all attention poisoned, mayhaps.
Yeah, maybe that's why they started so late to get marketing for Little Mermaid and Guardians of the Galaxy and all that. Yeah. It's just like, hey, we're just starting it a couple weeks before the movie's coming out. But okay, have fun.
Also worth noting that it only is in about 1,000 theaters, so about a third or even a fourth of what most big releases get. Yeah. Okay, Tucker. Headlines time. Not as many as we had last time, but of course that's because we had CinemaCon this month rather, that we will get to in just a mo. So, at the very beginning of April, we had Star Wars Celebration, where we had 3 new Star Wars films confirmed. One from James Mangold, one from the Filoni-verse, and one that is starring Daisy Ridley again. She's coming back very soon after the sequel trilogy. The quickest return of a Star Wars actor, definitely seems like. And I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about these films, Tucker?
I'm interested to see what cadence these end up coming out in. There are 3 very different movies. As far as we know, they're not intending to have any of them start a trilogy. I guess maybe unless they're successful. Star Wars in its current era, post Rise of Skywalker, and with all the television shows on a variety of TV shows on Disney Plus, has succeeded most in creating a smaller sub universe with the Mandalorian shows and exploring characters that we're already familiar with. The Mandoverse movie, that's fucking crazy. Like, let's see how that does. And these shows are popular. Let's see if it ends up bringing people really back. But I also see that being the last one of these. No. Actually, I think this is the first one of these I expect to come out.
Okay.
Mangold's movie I expect to be the last because Mangold's working on a lot of shit right now. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I have no idea. But I'm excited to see not only Star Wars movies come back, but they're not shoehorning themselves into a trilogy. They're letting distinct creative visions sort of tackle these and tackle different eras, make them feel a little more distinct. I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get 3 very different, very exciting Star Wars movies, not back to back to back, but a solid gap in between them.
Yeah. And of course, the one that's not here because it's been like in production for a while now is Taika Waititi's Star Wars film, which has
we'll
been.
see.
Well, no, there was a recent headline that he said he plans to go into production next year, and they do have a date for the untitled Star Wars film, which will almost certainly be that one, for December 2025. So that lines up. So we will be getting, it seems, Taika Waititi's Star Wars film in a couple years yet.
Sure.
Tucker Markiplier's making a movie.
Good for him.
Yep.
You know what? Why the fuck not?
He has wrapped filming on his directorial, and I think he's starring in it as well. The film Iron Lung. Now, are you familiar with the video game that this is based on?
No idea.
Okay, apparently it's based on a video game called Iron Lung. That's like a horror game on a submarine. So,
oh, okay. Well, hey, that actually sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Yeah.
But I also just like the idea that this guy with a lot of money and a big fan base is like, I'd like to try to make a movie. And why the fuck not? I'll say this, absolutely.
Yeah, me too. Tucker, they're making a live action Moana movie. They announced.
We talked about that last time.
They announced it last month, and we talked about it. They announced it in whatever the month was, March, and then it will begin production in October, apparently. So they are hoping.
That's a crazy turnaround.
It is a quick turnaround. So they are hoping to get this thing out soon, like early 2025 at the latest, probably.
Yeah, guess so.
We'll see. Doesn't give you a lot of confidence. El Muerto, Tucker. I don't think it's gonna make that January of next year release slot. No. Speaking of superhero movies on pause, also we don't have it here, but Blade is also on pause due to the writer's strike. And I'm sure the writer's strike does not help the production of El Muerto, which paused before the writer's strike happened. So. Let's talk about the writer's strike right now, because on May 2nd, the Writers Guild of America decided to strike for better compensation for their work, but also in light of the advent of artificial intelligence and potentially that creeping up on the writing of popular studio films and television series.
Yeah, we heard a little bit about that.
Yeah, apparently one of the negotiating terms was that artificial intelligence cannot be used to write films, or the opposite direction, that writers' work cannot be fed into artificial intelligence to make it more apt at writing films.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah. And studios apparently were not big on that idea, which is worrying. That they are like, we can't agree to that.
We will see what happens. This is gonna be interesting to follow up on, but hey. It's a watershed moment in film production history. So whatever way this goes, we will be having big ramifications.
Yeah,
on either side.
Lots of people have been talking about the last writer's strike that we got in 2006 or 2007, and the impact that had on releases like Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen and Quantum of Solace, the James Bond film, and how those were a bit underwhelming for a lot of people. So look forward to that, I guess.
Yay!
Speaking of things to look forward to, Tucker, Max debuts this month. Are you excited? No, Tucker, what? What do you mean?
I think it's just going to be a worse version of HBO Max, which is probably one of the best streaming services right now, but Warner Bros. Says fuck you, I guess.
Yeah. Tucker, Max...
Worst name, maybe worse content, all around, big loss. Max
is the place to watch HBO. If only there was a more truncated way to say that, Tucker. Well, speaking of, we're right on the tails here. Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire, a teaser was released.
You say hot on the heels of talking about HBO Max.
Oh yeah.
Godzilla vs. Kong released on HBO Max. I believe Legendary is no longer working with Warner Brothers for this next entry, so it won't be going. Movies don't go day and date to HBO Max anymore, which good. But also this one probably won't go there, period. But interesting. I don't think I realized that they were going to be making a Godzilla vs. Kong sequel. Godzilla X Kong has been memed to death as a fucking fan fiction title for a Godzilla vs. Kong movie. And then The New Empire is the most fucking generic subtitle you can possibly have for this. But like, I like going to see these movies. I like the fact that we still have kaiju movies, like big budget kaiju movies being produced. So sure, Why not
Yeah.
continue this stinking monsterverse?
Yeah. We're getting this March of next year as well. So yeah.
Wow, that's quick.
Mm-hmm. All right. November of next year also gives us Gladiator 2, which has been just pumping out some really exciting casting announcements. Over the last month, they have announced Pedro Pascal, Connie Nielsen will be returning to the film, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things Season 4, and Denzel Washington are joining the cast.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, and also,
with...
I believe Djimon Hounsou is returning.
Okay, nice. Of course, this is going to be with Barry Keoghan and oh god, why am I forgetting? Paul Mescal.
Yes.
In the lead roles for this film. So,
Yep.
very, very excited for this. I'm not a huge fan of Gladiator. I think I think that movie's a bit overhyped, overrated, maybe.
Yeah.
But this is getting me really excited for Gladiator 2.
Gladiator Legacy sequel. Ridley Scott. Let's go.
Yep.
His movies make a lot of money.
We'll see. Now we got some rated R film news here at the end here. So coming the most imminent release is of course Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, which has successfully appealed its original R rating from the MPAA and is now rated PG-13. It will be the first PG-13 film with a graphic nudity descriptor, a graphic nudity warning on it. Yes.
Yeah. Not only crazy that this is happening for a Wes Anderson movie, but crazy that it's the first PG-13 film to have that. I mean, as far as we know, what it means is there's full frontal nudity.
Yep.
It's a Wes Anderson movie. I doubt it's in a super explicit, inappropriate
no.
sexual context. So it's just going to be someone being naked on screen in a PG-13 movie, probably not even for that long.
No.
So I'm just surprised this has not happened before, but it's just the funniest reality we could possibly live in that Wes Anderson's like, I know, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, sure, okay, it's fine, whatever. I think this is really funny.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what it is, and people are excited that the hard PG-13 is coming back this year as well.
Yeah,
with the release of Guardians 3 and some extreme content in that film as well.
Yeah, true.
And then we have on December 15th a release date announcement for the much anticipated and much gossiped about Anyone But You, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. That comes out on the same day as Wonka this year, so interesting counter-programming.
Interesting double feature.
Oh, for an R-rated rom-com from these two. Lots of gossip about, are they dating? Are they cheating on their respective partners with each other? What's going on here? Glenn Powell's girlfriend broke up with him after a bunch of set photos came out. What's going on?
But you know what? That's good marketing.
It's good buzz.
It's good buzz. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. And CinemaCon, Tucker. So we have some CinemaCon stuff here. So let's start with Sony, because we talked about them with El Muerto. They showed some footage, a trailer for Kraven the Hunter, which we now know is a rated R film, speaking of rated R features, and will feature the Rhino, hopefully uttering the iconic line, "Do you want to know why they call me the Rhino?"
Do we know who's playing Rhino?
No, we do not. So that's a mystery. More stuff from Sony. Napoleon is a Apple TV Plus film, much like Killers of the Flower Moon, and much like Killers of the Flower Moon, will apparently be getting a robust theatrical release from Apple TV Plus and Sony.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And of course we had the Anyone But You drama that I already addressed. So, moving over to Warner Brothers, another studio that's in a spot of trouble. They announced that we will be getting a fourth Conjuring film called Conjuring Last Rites. Seems to me like that might be the final Conjuring film based on the title there.
Sure.
In Wonka, we got a confirmation that Hugh Grant will be playing an Oompa Loompa in Wonka.
Why the fuck not? Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And there was a screening of The Flash from Warner Brothers as well, where
that is easily, without a doubt, the biggest thing that happened at CinemaCon. CinemaCon this year was kind of mixed. People coming out of some and be like, okay, so some of this is not very interesting. There's a lot of movies that could have gotten information. There's basically no MCU news from this. But they also showed the fucking Flash. And Jesus Christ, people liked that movie. Talking about people that came out of this first screening.
Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see. But showing it an unfinished version, as they said a number of times, showing it 2 months early is a big swing. So we'll see how it pans out.
And also, pretty good sign of their confidence
Yeah.
in the movie, to be 100% honest.
Lionsgate has a summer of comedy shaping up, Tucker. I didn't really realize this until I took a look at their CinemaCon lineup, what they talked about. In May, at the end of this month, they'll of course have their feature About My Father with Robert De Niro and something Sebastian Maniscalco. In June, they'll have the horror parody film The Blackening. And in July,
saw the trailer for the first time. Looks kind of
yeah,
fun.
it looks kind of funny. And in July, they'll have a film that we've
Our
both
beloved
seen,
Joyride.
South by Southwest premiere of Joyride. So,
Yes.
summer of comedy for Lionsgate. Will it pan out for them? Studio
I
comedy
don't know,
has
man.
been a little down in the dips. Down in the dips.
Yeah.
What did I just say?
Sure, it works still. People understand what you're saying.
For recent years. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But
hey, you know what?
We also
I really respect them putting the effort into releasing multiple studio comedies. If anything can bring it back, you gotta try.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta put out these fucking movies to make them try to make money. I think the reason that the few that have released haven't made money is because only a couple have been releasing. So people are like, oh, what's this? I don't know. I'll just wait till streaming. There's plenty of streaming comedies, whatever. But like, theatrical only studio comedies coming back is a great thing for variety at the box office. So I'm excited.
We'll be seeing all of these. I mean, well, I don't know if we'll see. We'll maybe see Joyride again. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I want to see that again.
And we got a ballad. They got the trailer for Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Looks good.
Yep.
Looks good.
Didn't see it. Didn't watch the trailer, but I'll see it eventually.
Okay. Over at Disney, we got a new title for Gareth Evans' film, which was previously called True Love, but is now called The Creator. It's a sci-fi romance film, so we don't know a whole lot about it yet, but it does star John David Washington, and I like him.
Okay.
We got a trailer for Wish, which Tucker saw and did a whole video about breaking down the box office potential for that film. Will it make $1 billion? Is the question that you posed. We also got a trailer for A Haunting in Venice, which I haven't actually watched, and a trailer for Next Goal Wins, which I did watch.
Mm-hmm. I saw that in theaters. It looks fine. Interesting. Disney. People were, I think, most disappointed with Disney's showcase here. None of this is that huge, except for a Wish teaser trailer. But yeah, I mean, Wish is really the only thing I care about.
Yeah, Disney. It's also worth pointing out Disney is the studio that has multiple other showcases throughout the year where they show stuff off. So they didn't really come to win CinemaCon, but I don't think they need to. Well, worth noting that Nick's Gold Wins also moved up to November as well. So they're really positioning this thing as their awards film, which we'll see how that pans out. Universal, just quickly, we got a new title for The Exorcist remake, sequel, whatever you want to call it, reboot. It's now called The Exorcist Believer. We got a first look at Wicked Part 1 and some information about Kung Fu Panda 4. Neat stuff. Good stuff.
Good job, Universal.
Yeah. And Paramount, we got a cast announcement for Transformers 1, an animated Transformers film with a really stacked celebrity cast. The likes of Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson joining that one. Interesting to me that maybe this is the direction they're taking the Transformers franchise. If they want to stop pumping money into these live action films and want to do some animated stuff, I think that's what we might be looking at here, frankly.
Yeah. I am interested in this. Only because Transformers is just like so weird, and the animated Transformers movie might make them a good amount of money. So. Yeah, different direction to take things.
Oh, we're getting a sequel to Smile, Smile 2, which was a big horror sensation last year. So exciting.
Yeah.
The Dead Reckoning, or Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, will now release on July 12th. So that is
pushed up just a couple days.
Yeah, that's a Wednesday now. So just giving it a 5-day release. So
true.
And we got a title announcement for Bob Marley, One Love, the Bob Marley biopic starring Kingsley Ben-Adir. That's coming out in January, but I presume it will get a limited release in December, so it can be eligible for the Oscars next year.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, CinemaCon. Lots of small news to talk about.
Speaking of some things to talk about, we got one last slide before we get into May predictions, and that is a last time on Backlot Banter, checking in with some of the films from March and how are they doing.
What's interesting about this is you can look at the ones It's organized from oldest to newest of these films, and of course, the ones at the front end of this list aren't going to have made as much money from the last time we checked in on them because they had the most time in the box office by the time we did that. But the reason I wanted to bring this back is to see what kind of legs these movies were having past that first month of their release, or for the first month of their release for some of the later ones. You see something like Creed 3 still making another solid chunk of change. It's done by now. Yeah. Creed 3 and Scream 6 made a little bit more money, landed them at some solid totals. It's kind of their final total for both these films, so I just wanted to have the information there.
65?
And then fucking 65 had been out for 4 weeks at the time that we talked about it, and we were like, it might squeeze past $65 million. Like, if it just, it sticks around a little bit. And it didn't. It made $1 million more dollars.
Just swap those numbers and then you got it.
Month.
Talk, if you hold that number up to a mirror, then you got it.
Yeah. Crazy. And then, of course, the shit show that is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It was only in week 3 of its release. And superhero movies usually have somewhat of a tail, but not this one. Yeah, sitting at under $150 million. I believe this makes it like the second lowest grossing DCEU movie, behind the Suicide Squad, which released in such a weird time anyway. That also I think maybe Wonder Woman might also be
both of those day and date
84.
on HBO as well.
Yes.
The opposite story of John Wick Chapter 4 nearly doubling or just under doubling the number that we projected for it, was at $250 million in its second week and made $400 million as of week 6, and it'll probably make a bit more still in theaters, but rounding it out there.
Because it's absolutely sticking around. We continue to see it in the top 5, outgrossing some of the new movies each week of its future release, like we were talking about with some of those other failed kind of programmings. And then, of course, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves was only in its first week when we talked about it last time, and it has gone on to double the amount of money that it had made at that point. But I think it's slowing down.
Yeah.
This movie's almost gone. I think that it has certainly been more of a success than I think I was thinking based on that first few weeks that it was open. Yeah. But I'm glad it's stuck around and made a little bit of money.
Yeah. I think that there was a budget of like $150 million on this thing, so it has made some money on that budget. Probably not.
It's made that back.
Yeah, it's made that back. Probably not with marketing and stuff like that. But this would be going to Paramount Plus any day now, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Tucker, the month of May poses an interesting question. Because everything wants to get out of the way of Guardians, which came out already. We don't know the opening weekend for that yet because it just came out. We're recording this on Saturday morning.
It's tracking pretty good.
Tracking very well. Above Quantumania, which is, not a whole lot, but still above Quantumania. So, not a lot of big studio releases coming out the week after, but then after that, on May 19th, we have...
What do you mean? Sony's got Knights of the Zodiac.
Knights of the Zodiac and Book Club 2 come out on that day, as does Fool's Paradise and Hypnotic come out in that, post-Guardian slot, just trying to grab as much money as I can. And Blackberry, which I'm actually interested about. Blackberry, Hypnotic, and Fool's Paradise are all the ones that, if we get those, I definitely want to see those, because they seem interesting to me. Then, after that, you, of course, have Fast X coming out on May 19th, same day as Master Gardener and Sanctuary, I believe. So, we got the big studio release there, and then some smaller indie stuff, which intrigues me. Want to catch those if I can as well.
Yep.
And then, rounding out the month, we have The Little Mermaid, which actually has, probably the highest profile competition with About My Father, them trying to, get some other people to go see that one, and The Machine, starring Burt Kreischer. So, we got, the family-friendly 4-quadrant Disney remake, and then, rated R comedies for dudes. With
the two dudes comedy coming out the same day, which is hilarious.
Two dude comedies where it's the dude and his dad are going on an adventure.
Played by a famous actor, De Niro / Hamill. Weird. Yeah.
Weird month.
Yeah, but the weirder part of this, and the thing that I think you were saying poses an interesting question, is what the fuck is the top 5 going to be here? The top 3 are so obvious that if you didn't put them as your top 3, I think there's something wrong with the order of those in their domestic openings is a little bit questionable. Okay, will Guardians actually succeed? There are some question marks about it with the pre-sales, though I think those have sort of picked up. And also, the movie's out now, so that doesn't fucking matter anymore. But then, is Fast and the Furious fever sweeping the nation again? After F9, are people interested in Fast X? Does Little Mermaid get a huge amount of butts and seats, or does it just have long legs after it comes out? Who the fuck knows? But you and I have our top 3 the same.
Yes, we do.
Actually. And the only difference that we have here is trying to squeeze in 2 reasonably high-profile studio releases
comedies. They're just comedies. Okay, so I have my numbers here for predicting. So of course we both have Guardians.
Well, of course they'll be really wrong.
Yeah, well, Tucker, I feel confident this month. I feel confident. Okay. We'll see. So I have Guardians.
Sure, Renfield, $30 million.
I feel confident, Tucker. I feel confident, nonetheless. Okay. Guardians Volume 3, $112 million. It's projected to be about 115 at this point, so I feel good. Okay. Little Mermaid, I'm gonna say, is gonna make that classic Quantumania opening just over 100 million with 105. I'm gonna say for Little Mermaid. And of course these things do have long legs, which is funny with the Little Mermaid. Funny little joke. Yeah. And you got Fast X. I'm gonna say 70 million, which is I think a little more than what F9 did. I think.
Sure.
But I think
if I'm remembering correctly, I think that was like a 60 million.
Yeah. Actually, let me pull it up here because I do think that Fast and Furious has a dedicated audience at this point, but it's not bringing in like $1 billion like it used to back in F9 days. Yeah. And it did end.
You mean Furious 7, not F9? F9 did not.
Excuse me. I'm looking at the page for F9 right now. Well, actually, I take that back. F9 did make $70 million.
Okay. So you think this will probably be a little bit bigger than that, right?
Yeah. I'll say 75.
You can change it. I'll let you
I'll
change
say 75.
It. You gotta change your order. Okay, $75 million opening. What do you think Book Club and About My Father?
And then we have a precipitous drop off here. And I'm gonna say,
believe it or not,
Book Club 2 is just gonna have a better time than About My Father will.
Okay.
Because it's targeting, this old lady audience, like 80 for Brady did. The first Book Club actually didn't do too bad, so I'm gonna say it's a little worse than the first Book Club, honestly.
Probably.
I think that
because who was fucking clamoring for this?
I think that first Book Club made 12 million, so I'm gonna say 9 for Book Club, the next chapter.
9.
And then About My Father, I don't know who, they think the audience is for this. Book Club 2 has a very direct audience. It's who is starring the film. It's the old lady audience. About My Father, though, is it for, big fans of Sebastian Maniscalco and Robert De Niro? I don't know. But I'm gonna say 7 for About My Father.
Okay. Yeah, and again, this, I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
But I think for me, About My Father as... frankly, a male-oriented comedy, I think, does skew to a larger audience. And Robert De Niro, he was a big draw, obviously, for a long time, but also in comedies with the Fockers series, that this is kind of recapturing that energy, him playing the dad of a comedian in a wacky family scenario. I think that appeals to a wider group of people, even if just by a slim margin, which is why I'm putting it number 4 as opposed to number 5.
I want to say one last thing that I didn't mention. Book Club 2 is also our Mother's Day weekend film.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah. And then you got Father's Day weekend.
No, that's not till later, Tucker. Okay. But there it is, folks. We'll see how we do here. Tucker, I feel confident. I think I'm going to get all of these right. I feel very good this month.
Always happens.
Yeah.
Always
happens. I'm calling my shot. I'm calling my moonshot right now. It's going to happen. Okay. There it happens. There it goes. They're locked in stone right now. But I want you to go down to the comments and tell us your top 5 domestic opening predictions. You don't have to give numbers.
And you can leave those for a week or so. Guardians will come out, and of course it'll have its opening weekend total pretty soon after this video goes up. But considering you don't know how much Little Mermaid and Fast X are going to make, you can keep leaving these comments for a little while.
Yeah.
You're not really cheating.
We would all have Guardians at number 1 anyway, I think.
Maybe. Yeah. I actually originally had Little Mermaid up at the top, but then I was like, I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think a Little Mermaid might make more money in the long run.
Yeah.
But Guardians, I think, might open a little bit stronger.
Yeah, as they often do, as those MCU films often do. Go watch our Guardians review, by the way. I love plugging videos at the end of hour and a half long videos.
Yeah, it's so smart, Tanner.
It's the best way to do it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.